Hey guys, welcome back to the shack. Tonight I'll be working on a project by using the xTool P2. That's the 55 watt CO2 from xTool. And I'm going to be working on a project that I did using the CNC over there. It's basically a little wooden flag. And I've gotten to where I basically will make them with the CNC, just using little scrap pieces of oak or whatever other kind of wood I've got. Tonight's is going to be an oak piece, and once I get that done, I get it engraved with the CNC, get everything sanded up, get it looking nice. Then I like to go in with the laser and engrave, whatever the graphic may be. Tonight we're going to be doing a badge on this one, and I'm going to kind of walk you through the process of doing it with XCS, the different things to consider, some things that you might want to do to make your workflow a little easier. But if that's something you're into, stick around, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, here we are back in XCS. And like I said, I mostly run the P2 in XCS because if you try to run it in Lightburn, as much as I like Lightburn, you lose a lot of the functionality of the P2. That the functionality is kind of what you paid for when you buy it, because it is a little more expensive, but it's got some pretty cool functions. And in Lightburn, you lose those functions. The two things that I have done, and you may notice in my workspace here, I'm using my little P2 honeycomb lock that I built, which is basically just a piece of wood that fills that void and kind of locks everything in place, snaps in to the existing machine. You don't have to modify it. You don't have to add any screws. Early on, I was using painter's tape to hold that thing still, and it just, let's face it, guys, it looked a little rednecked. So decided to go with more of a put it in and forget about it approach. That little piece of wood is down below the surface of the honeycomb, so it's not going to interfere with anything we're doing. Also, I'm using my little L brackets. These are basically a cut file, and they have three rare earth magnets on each side, and they stick really well to that steel honeycomb and just kind of help hold things in place and make sure that this piece doesn't move. Even if the machine's running at real high speeds, it should stay still. So that's the setup. And if you're using a P2, those are the two things that I may have going that you may or may not. So as we said, this is a piece of oak. I'm going to go ahead and refresh the view just to make sure nothing should have changed. Also, you can do it two ways. You can do the quick measure as far as the thickness of the material, or you can go over here and do an aimed measure. I'm going to go ahead and do an aimed measure, and I'm going to do it exactly where we're going to be engraving, and let the machine go ahead and run that. It said 12.8. When I did the aimed measure, it says 14.5. So there's one reason why I would recommend, especially like this situation to where I have, recesses in the material. You never know where it's getting that reading from, so it's better to go ahead and do the aimed, unless it's a completely flat piece of material that is that's being engraved. So now that we've got our thickness set in there, everything should be good with that. As you can see, plenty of room to move. I do like putting objects in the middle of the workspace. This allows the head to be able to sweep left and right and do the engrave. If you're running really high speeds, if you get too close to the edge, it may or may not have enough room to slow down at the rate that it needs to. So you may actually see that it'll knock your speed back sometimes on certain machines. And so I usually just try to stay in the middle of the workspace whenever possible. So I'm going to bring the badge in now. These are all of my little SVG files that I've moved over, kind of getting them ready for XCS. And I'm going to bring the badge in. And what I want to do is kind of feel, you can see where this design, it's kind of like got a little void there where the badge is supposed to go. And this is more or less just a universal design, but about right there. So just to make sure of where I'm putting it, I'm going to go ahead and do me a close capture right there in my work area. That way it will be a little more exact than using just the standard overall view. That'll give me a little better idea as far as alignment, because as some of you have pointed out, with the P2, framing is really not a thing. So it's best to use all the tools that they gave you to make sure that you've got that, spaced the way that you want it to be. And I think that's going to look pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the close view, because it does kind of get annoying when your image is shaded like that. Now for this design, we will be running it as an engrave. The manual settings in here, I don't know that I have anything. I do have a setting for cypress, which would probably work for this. I need to save me one for oak, but I have not done that yet. The one I did the other day, I ran similar settings. You're looking at 100% power at 200 speed. Cypress burns a little better than oak, but not as black. So I think we'll be good with that. I do want to run my lines up a little bit, just to give myself a little more detail in some of this real tiny stuff here. I'm going to leave it on bi-directional, and pretty much we should be ready to go. Now the preview is pretty good, pretty awesome, because like with this file, it does allow you to kind of zoom in and make sure none of your fine details are going to be left and not engraved. And I have found that it's generally pretty accurate. So we're going to go ahead and hit the start button over here. And of course, now I got to walk over and hit the button. xTool, could we please have an override switch for that? Some of us don't want to walk over. As you can see, the burn is completed. I do run air, so I did expect to have a little bit of charring, which is not an issue. This is actually a piece of material that I have run through the CNC and everything, so it's going to get sanded again anyway before it gets finished. And I'm going to capture that close view. And yes, there's that pesky progress bar again. I'm not sure when this exactly started happening, but maybe it'll straighten itself out in the next patch. But you can see the machine burn the image exactly where it was supposed to. And a lot of people are asking me about, how do I frame with my P2? How do I frame with my P2? And that's the reason that there's really not a framing function with the P2, is if you use in combination the overall view camera as well as the capture close view camera, I have found that it's spot on. You can zoom in here and look a little closer. The image, like I said, it is exactly, everything is exactly where it said it was going to be. So that's the reason there is no frame function, in my opinion, is you really don't need it if you use both of the cameras the way that they were intended. Now, if you only use the outer camera, and I'll kind of give you a look of what it looks like. And you do have to right click inside this box here and delete the close view if you don't want to see it. But if I only run the overall, the whole work area camera, the main camera, and we do the same thing with it, you'll see that it's not going to be as precise. But that's because this camera is trying to cover the entire work area. And you can see there's a little bit of a deviation right there at that first inner circle. You can see at the bottom of it, it's not correct. But if I come out and I capture a close view right there where those two lines are missing, then we'll have a little bit better look at it. The reason the close view is so much more accurate is because that camera is on the gantry of the machine right where the module is, and it can get exactly over the top of the area. And when it takes that picture, the picture is just going to be a lot more precise. So there you can see it's very, very close. So I think that's the reason that xTool did not include a framing function with this machine. They did with the S1 as well as, with the D1 and all the other machines. But I think they had such confidence in the camera system on the P2 that they deemed it not necessary. So what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm just going to go over there and take that off, and we'll look at it before and after it gets a little touch of sandpaper. All right, so straight off of the machine, I do have some scorching. Like I said, it doesn't look as noticeable outside the machine as it does inside. What I'll do to this is I'll take this over to the workbench here, and I'm going to hit it with a little bit of 220 grit sandpaper on my random orbital, and that'll fix this right up, but it's going to leave me that dark burn that I wanted, and I think it's going to look sharp. So let me get that done. So how's that for surprising results, guys? All right, that turned out awesome. And because of the power settings and because of that really, really fine LPI, the areas that were supposed to be like faded black and kind of have that recess as if it would on the real badge itself, it did just that. And I've still, even after I sanded it and hit it with the air hose, and I used compressed air to clean engraves. If you don't have one, guys, you can get a little cheap air compressor, which is what I'm using, a little California Air. It just gets you a blow nozzle to blow stuff off when you finish the engraves. If you're working a little more low-key, get you a can of air, like you use to clean your keyboard and stuff, air duster. It'll work as well. It's not going to be a long-term solution. You're going to have to keep buying those, but you know, if you don't have room for an air compressor, that's always an option. But there's the finished result, and like I said, I do have that 3D effect in those deeper areas because it did kind of just remove a lot of the material. I've got that nice contrast between the wood and the badge. I don't plan on doing a whole lot to this. I have thought about maybe trying to paint some of the lines, but I like kind of going just natural wood, so that may be what we end up doing. I had even considered trying to test the camera and do a little engraving in these holes with the actual laser file for this thing, but I'm not sure. Not sure I want to risk it. I'm not sure I want to risk tearing my design up just in case. All right, guys, you talked me into it. We're going to see if we can line this up, and if I can line it up, we're going to try to engrave inside the CNC part of the flag. So let's see if it works. All right, so I've updated my overlay, and I'm going to hit that refresh button one more time just to go ahead and get me a clean image and make sure everything is exactly as it needs to be. Looks like it is. So now I'm going to go over here and go down and find the flag file itself. And there it is. And we're going to try to move that over. Now, because I did this on the CNC, of course, you know, we're going to have some sizing that we're going to have to work through here. So let's try to let's see if we can match this up. But I guess this is going to be a true test of just how accurate is this camera. All right, guys, so I've done as much as I could possibly do to get this accurate. I'm hoping the camera is very accurate. If not, probably going to be sanding this thing down. So I'm going to run this one at 100% power, 500 millimeters per second, and only 100 lines per centimeter. So hopefully if it does go south, it'll be an easy fix if it misses the holes. So here we go. Let's no guts, no glory. Let's see what happens. So that's what all we're going to be engraving, and there we go. Got to walk over and hit the button. All right, guys, so the first run is complete, and it looks like it did pretty well. So I'm going to refresh the image and kind of show you what it looks like. There was a couple of places, which is my fault more than likely, that I didn't quite get the coverage I need, so I'm probably going to have to go back and do some touch-up to those. But it's going to be right down here in the bottom, so I'm going to go capture a nice tight view of the bottom here, and you should be able to see it. The stars, all the stars look really good. I'm a little surprised at that, but they do. The only thing is down here on the bottom, I did manage to leave a little bit, and you can even tell it if you look at it here. This needed to have been a little wider on the bottom here. The stars all worked out nice. So I'm gonna have to go back and kind of adjust that just a little bit. But I'm gonna look at it real careful and select accordingly. But the first thing we need to do is, because the stars did work out the way I wanted them to, I want to go in here and try to get rid of all these stars. So I'm gonna try to select those guys. And I'm gonna set those. I wonder if it'll let me delete those without deleting everything. Yes, it will. Okay, so we're just gonna delete those. And then I'll go over and check it out and see what all we need to make changes to it. All right, guys, so it finished up the second round, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to have to learn to trust this camera a little more. But there's the finished product. I'm going to go ahead and delete these out of here and just kind of show you what it looks like now that we've got it done. What I did is, guys, and keep in mind, this is the first time I've ever tried to laser on top of a CNC file. One thing that I did learn with this is I need to go by the outside edge of the instead of trying to put it in the bottom like that, I need to use the top for alignment, because the bottom, I guess you're getting a bit of an optical illusion from here using the camera, and that's what had me over. But I've run that on there. I set the settings right, so I've got rid of most of the lines and stuff like that. But let's just get this thing off of here. All right, so considering this is my first ever time trying to engrave inside a CNC project, I think it turned out pretty nice. Because the only oops that I had was, I don't know if you can barely see it, you can see some tiny little lines. That first pass that I ran, I didn't go over far enough. But I'm gonna be honest with you, looking at it, it's really hard to pick up on that. So I think we're going to be fine, but give me just a second. Let me hit this with some sandpaper to get any kind of soot and everything off of it. Hit it with a little compressed air so we can see what it actually is going to look like when it's done. All right, guys, I think it turned out pretty nice. Like I said, first time doing this, a lot of things that I had to learn. One, I got to learn to trust the camera. And I've also got to learn that I need to aim for the top of the material instead of trying to go down inside the holes. But there we go. And that is, I basically went over it with some 220 grit, or 120. I made use 120, just to get the edges here, if there was any kind of soot or anything up on there. And then I took it over to the air hose and hit it with some compressed air. So, but yeah, nice 3D engrave. So it is actually three-dimensional. But the camera, guys, I really want to hit this with some polyacrylic. Stay tuned to the Facebook page. I will be posting some photos of this later. But the camera, the P2, is very, very accurate, as you can see in this demonstration. I'm not going to say it's perfect. It's not a scientific instrument. You're not going to be like, making space shuttle gaskets or anything with the P2. But it's very, very, very accurate for most of what you're going to be doing. And the more time you're willing to spend with it, take with it, learn it, practice it, the better off you're going to be. And that, for those that have asked, is the reason that I believe the P2 doesn't have a frame function. Because to be honest with you, using that camera, the results I got with that, I don't know that I could have got any better results framing with the machine than what I got doing it that way. So that's probably why you can't frame with the P2. Now, if that's something that everybody would like to have, I guess it's doable. But the only problem is, guys, this machine doesn't have a red dot. or crosshair or anything to use to point with. Most of the machines that do that either have a red dot inside the tube that broadcasts along with the CO2 beam for the machine, or it either has, you know, kind of one off to the side and you have an offset for framing. So it's probably because they didn't feel like it needed it. And after what I've seen, okay, maybe not. So I hope the video was helpful to you and gives you an idea of what this thing's capable of. Maybe you can learn from my mistakes. Trust the camera. Do the close view. Use it to place the things where you want them. I've been able to do several cuts to where I would cut something, and let's say I didn't have the settings right, and it'd be a little bit too low, and I had moved it, but I've been able to put it back in there and place it using the camera, get the engrave or the cut to go back and hit like the same hole. And if it doesn't hit the same hole, it literally is like an onion skin from being in the same hole. So pretty good tool to have on the P2 there for those of you that have one or maybe going to get one. But if you do decide you want to get one, guys, I'll drop a link down below. Those are affiliate links, and xTool does give me a little payback for sharing their products. So it does kind of help keep the lights on here at the shack. So if this video is helping you decide, then feel free to use my links and help out the shack. So until next time, guys, y'all be safe and have a good day.